Thank you for joining me. This is Archetypal Nature, and one of our mottos here is called or uncalled, the gods are present. And that's what C.G. Jung had carved over his office door. He believed it was such an important motto for understanding the unconscious, and these archetypal forces are alive in us, whether we would like that to be so or not. And how can we come to understand them? How can we come to be conscious of these energies in us? And that's what we're working on here. Today's video, we're just going to look briefly at the lineage of the system. And the system begins with the great Toni Wolff. Wonderful portrait there of her that hung in the Swiss Psychological Club, the first Jungian Institute, alongside the portraits of Jung and Emma Jung, Carl and Emma Jung. Toni was born in 1888 and passed away in 1953. Here is all of them in 1911 at the Psychoanalytic Congress. Emma Jung, Carl's wife, seated in front of him. And Toni had been Jung's patient, and when he experienced his own time of crisis, what we call the confrontation with the unconscious, the period that gave us the Red Book images that we have today, Toni was there as his kind of psychic lifeguard. He had cured her in her time of difficulty, and now she was there for him. And really throughout the primary development of Jungian psychology, the time when it was born, Toni and Jung were close. They worked together to develop Jungian psychology, and her influences throughout it. I don't think that there would be a Jungian psychology as we know it today without Toni. Jung's secretary called her his helper in the intellectual penetration of the world of psychic images. You can see the great depth, I believe, in her face, in her eyes, her keen vision for the unconscious and the deep mysteries in the psyche. She had a remarkable insight and was articulate and confident, as I always felt as if I were even nearer to Jung's inner wisdom when I was with her than when I was with him in the flesh. She was in some way the inner side of his, or rather the inner companion of his journey through the unconscious. She was the first president of the Zurich Psychological Club from, I believe, 28 to 45. Some people said that she was an even better analyst than Jung. She, of course, had helped Jung during his confrontation with the unconscious. And her fingerprints are on so much of Jungian psychology, but particularly on psychological types, where I believe that she contributed the intuitive piece and helped Jung see the world and come to write this book, Psychological Types. But when it was done, she felt something was missing. And she gave a lecture in 1934 that outlines what she thought was missing, what she called structural forms of the feminine psyche, speaking to what we now today call archetypes within the human personality, that in addition to the psychological type categories, these archetypal categories, these archetypal tensions, give us a much better picture of the psyche, in her opinion and in mine. So, of course, she worked with Jung and looked at the world through the introvert-extrovert lens, how we get our energy, the sensation-intuition lens, through how we perceive the world, thinking and feeling lens, how we judge. But she saw further beyond this, that there were categories regarding how we deal with people, how we're oriented to, our unconscious is oriented towards dealing with people as individuals or collective. Some people are much more comfortable with people in their collective sense. Some people, their energy goes to people in their individual sense. We'll see that evidenced through how people find identity. Some people find identity through the collective. Some people find identity through the individual, through one-on-one. Another axis that Toni observed was a tension between those of us that are geared towards reflection in understanding the world and those that are geared towards action in responding to the world. Another way of talking about this would be there are some folks that find their identity through awareness, through understanding, through comprehension, and some for whom performance, doing, action is primary. And that this is an inherent tension in the psyche and one of the primary areas of misunderstanding amongst people and of missing self-understanding as well. Of course, these principles within us, these archetypes, are unconscious, so we don't know that they are running the show. We don't know that these archetypes are running us. We just act out, of course, and with understanding, we can come to see these energies in us and understand better how they operate in us. The unconscious is like an optical illusion. You don't get it until you get it. Once you see it there all the time. Here, for example, you see the person looking right towards us and to the right. And it's the same way with archetypal understanding of personality. You don't really see these things until you see it, and then once you do, it's right there and you can't unsee it. And we can understand the conscious mind as emerging out of the unconscious. The unconscious is the essential matrix out of which the conscious mind emerges. And archetypes are the structural forms, kind of the girders or the engines or the hot spots, the locuses of energy within the unconscious, primary ways that our energy is funneled and that we respond to the world. We see these archetypes in action through how people find identity, how they understand themselves in the world, the differing ways that people find identity, and through fulfillment. What fulfills one person may not fulfill another. And Toni really got that and saw, and her archetypes really illustrate that, and that's what we get into in Archetypal Nature. Toni's system became a part of the Jungian lexicon through into the 70s and 80s and even 90s, with Ulanov and Whitmont writing about it in books. And Tad and Noreen Guzies were the particular developers of it. And that's how it came to me. They wrote a book called About Men and Women that is now back in print. They had been MBTI facilitators and they felt something was missing. Just following the same process Toni had. They felt something was missing from psychological type, and they found Toni's archetype work and they really knew they had something there and developed it further, and that's how it came to me. And I was led to their work through Rita Priestley and Linda Lear. Myself, I have a bachelor degree in philosophy from the University of British Columbia and a master's degree in psychology from Pacifica Graduate Institute of Santa Barbara. I'm a certified administrator of the MBTI and the developer of Archetypal Nature, and the website is archetypalnature.com. The late Robert L. Moore is another kind of offshoot of this work. It's not the same system. There's some pretty big differences that I'll get into in future videos for you. But it's a parallel, and I certainly draw a lot of inspiration from Robert L. Moore, and his work is fantastic. I think this is a better system, Archetypal Nature, and I'll explain why in future videos. There's also a parallel that we found to the 5 Tibetan Buddha families, and I think that's a good echo. If something is true in the collective unconscious, then it should be mirrored in different places, and this is one echo that we can feel that we do understand something accurately here. So there's more to come and more videos coming for you. I wanted to share this with you today, so thank you for watching it, and check out archetypalnature.com, and please sign up for our email list and follow us on Facebook, and we will have more for you. Thank you.